Good morning. It's about 7 a.m. right now on the 27th of September, and here's my latest entry into what I'm calling my weight loss journey. To refamiliarize anybody who's new to this, I had gotten labs done about a month ago for a physical that I haven't had in about 7 years, and I wasn't expecting to see good news, and I didn't get good news. I actually got worse news. So, in the course of those 7 years, I've gotten married. I now have two children that are like 1 and 3, my boys, and I think it's important for me to be able to be active enough to keep up with them as they grow, especially in this COVID world because they don't get to see other children and interact with other children very often. So they have to interact with their mother and their father. Um, but if I'm in the meantime out of breath going upstairs, you know, that's not a good sign for what the future may hold. I want to have a good future for them and for myself. So I'm on this journey to improve things. At the same time, I'm learning. I'm going online and doing a little bit of, I'll call it research, to just see, what's popular out there, what are people saying, is what they're saying plausible or not. Anytime you're trying to read something, it is good to see it from multiple sources to get together what is the facts, what is the science, what is the truth behind things. People might be able to do this when they watch the news. People do not like sometimes news outlets and news media because they don't like the slant that a certain channel may go. They talk about right wing, left wing. But if you were to watch them both, somewhere along the lines, you would see almost like a Venn diagram where they connect. And that part in the middle, that's the truth. Those are the facts of the case. Everything else is just noise and opinion and, maybe the news you want it. But if you get to the multiple sources, you can actually kind of see what is the meat of the matter versus what is opinion. I'm trying to do the same thing with reading about. Um, I'm going to talk about apple cider vinegar today, read about supplements, read about exercise, read about food in general. You can go to certain websites, and I'm sure they all have their opinion. And some will say, avoid fat at all costs, eat a high carb, high protein. And others might say, no, 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 don't have any carbs. You want to go vegetables and fruit only. Well, how do you know which one's right? Or more importantly, which one's right for you or I? So you read around, and eventually you do get to see what the common areas that people are talking about is, and it makes your journey easier for you because now you have a version of the truth which might be close to fact and science that might really help you out. Now, we all have to make our own decision of what to follow because what might be the perfect intake for a body might not be pleasurable at all. Who wants to eat cardboard tasting food for a while? It's just those things that we have to come to terms with. So, without further ado, let me start. I'm still holding steady from a couple days ago at my number. Um, it's interesting too because yesterday was a very big outdoor day. Did a lot of lawn mowing and some things in my garage. And during my keeping busy the whole time, I actually completely skipped lunch. And I don't advocate people doing that unless you're trying to do some fasting thing. But it's one of the things I like because if I'm busy, I'm not snacking, I'm not thinking of food. I just have to make sure I go to the fridge and grab some water to keep myself hydrated because, I was out in the sun. You kind of dehydrate a little bit, your mouth gets a little sticky. So, I don't recommend skipping meals, but in the meantime, I did. So I was like, I wonder what happened here. So I think I probably had a worse day the day before. So in the 2 days, I might have gone up a tick, but then yesterday I came down a tick. So I'm not up as of this update. That makes me happy enough to say, hey, it's been 2 days. I'm not failing in my progress. One of the things I can say though is, except for doing a couple things of yard work around the house or doing projects in the house, so far this has been a diet only weight loss. So I'm down 14 or so, and it's not being supplemented by a lot of activity. Um, I've seen this on advertisements where there's something that's being offered for to help you, with a meal plan or diet or weight loss, and on the bottom of the screen there's always that little, oh, this is also in conjunction with exercise, or there's some kind of disclaimer to say, oh, these results, you have to do this and that. So, um, some people don't do the exercise, but if you miss that quick little quip on the bottom of the screen, you'll think that you can just have the food and see all the gains that you want. And that's just part of marketing right there, and that marketing can really be deceptive. You ever see before and after pictures of people? The before pictures, if it's a white person, they're usually very, very pale, no sun whatsoever, and they're always frowning. They're always upset when they have the picture. And then you see the after picture, they usually turn a little bit to the side so you can see a better profile. Now they're tanned. Now they have a big smile on their face. So it's almost as if, okay, now that I've lost weight, all of a sudden my skin tone has gone from pale and pasty to out in the sun tan. I'm ready for the beach. And I was very unhappy before, but now I'm very happy. So just keep in mind these things. But I digress. So what I wanted to talk to you today, like I mentioned before, is something I've been using these days, which is the apple cider vinegar. And I'm learning about what it is, what it does, why it's beneficial. And I'll even talk about some of the downsides of it too, but they don't seem to be very much out there. So this is one of those things that, in reading about it, the science is out there. Now, it's not a diet transform your body fluid. This isn't the magic elixir. We're not selling snake oil here. But there has been studies, and the studies do say that it supports weight loss. And the main thing about it is there's an acetic acid inside the apple cider vinegar, and that's what does the work. And that acetic acid is something that decreases abdominal fat that they found in some instances, and it prevents the buildup of fat in your system. And one of the ingredients of the apple cider vinegar that lets it do this is something they call the mother. On bottles, you'll see this little notation with the mother. That's the important part of all this. Now, what the hell's the mother? So, what I've read is that the mother it's kind of like the culture of bacteria that's in the apple cider vinegar. And it's the thing that actually turns apple cider into vinegar in the first place. Some people actually like kombucha. There's something in there called the SCOBY. It's just like the mother. That's where you have the bacteria itself, and the bacteria and the enzymes in it is what is going to do what needs to be done. Now, like all scientists, they do these kind of studies on animals first. Get your lab rats, get your rabbits, and whatever else. I'm not saying this is a PETA conversation, but they start there and move forward. So they said it just reduces the storage of fat in the body, and because of that, it's not one for one exactly, but there is an increase of burning the fat. And the reason why this actually is something that works is how blood sugar and insulin in your system are working together. I've generally only heard of insulin when it comes to people who have diabetes. But the problem with the diabetes is, are they making too much or too little or not at all? And that's what people with pens and blood tests and all kinds of stuff are trying to combat and fix. But on people like myself who does not currently have diabetes, and although my doctor said I'm pre-diabetic, I'm trying to get away from that and keep the system where it's supposed to be. But I had to learn a little bit more. What is insulin for someone who doesn't have diabetes? And it's an interesting conversation to have. Conversation. It's the internet. It's an interesting thing to read and learn more about. So it turns out it's one of those things. I remember hearing this once before when I saw a nutritionist years and years ago about how when you're eating and you have a lot of, say, carbohydrates, how it gets into your system and then your blood sugar spikes. And what the insulin does is it comes and kind of works with that to bring it back down again. We're trying to keep the body at almost like a level flow of blood sugar. And when I would give my nutritionist my meals that I've had for the past week so he can make some changes on it, and again, this is over a decade ago, he noticed that my breakfast, my lunch, my dinner, even snacks in between, were all extremely carb laden. I've said in the past, there are those things where what you have become is the price you paid to get what you used to want. Well, I used to want to have these big, flavorful foods, and they might have had big breads and this, that in there, or trans fats, or just other things that tastes damn good, but my body doesn't like it in high doses. So he saw that all my meals were going by and it was like spiking up the sugar and the insulin has to crash it back down again. And spike it up the next time and it comes back down again. And up, down. And those extreme ups and downs are not good for your system, from what he's telling me. So what is the up and the down? And this is what I've learned recently. So your carbohydrates enter your system while you eat. And then your stomach, the acids and everything else, that breaks it down into a glucose, and a glucose is a form of sugar. Now the sugar is able to travel through your bloodstream. And usually when it's in your bloodstream, that's where it will go to the cells it needs because the sugar is energy. And your body needs energy to burn. When all of a sudden this glucose is introduced and becomes part of the system, the pancreas responds and it produces an insulin. And the insulin actually helps it get into the bloodstream, is what it is. I might have gone a little bit too fast up front. You make the sugar, insulin, into the bloodstream, and now it's in there. Now in the bloodstream, it can go to all the cells and what have you in the body. It's going to use it there as energy. Now, if you've got too much, the body will use the energy it can get for what it needs to do and will store the rest. It'll store the rest because, you know something, I have a meal today. Who knows when the next meal's coming? Let me hold on to the rest of it. And then later on when I need it, I can release it into the system. When you're going from meal to meal, say you do 3 meals a day and they're scheduled throughout the day, those times in between, there's no new insulin being produced because there's no new glucose coming into your body. So then your cells are releasing that glucose to keep kind of a steady level of energy or sugar throughout the day. But then while it's doing this, all of a sudden you have your second meal and boom, you spike it back up again. Well, it doesn't have to release that anymore. It's got more carbs, create more glucose. Pancreas puts more insulin out there, gets into the bloodstream, goes into the cells. Now it stores more. And these things do turn up into fat. So this seems to be how your eating turns to sugar and the sugar creates the insulin and then that's how your body keeps going. I'm starting to learn this. Okay. Well, why is that important then? The apple cider vinegar, one of the things that it does is with digestion, it might kind of help you keep things, say, in the stomach just a little bit longer than it normally would. And therefore, not getting broken down into the glucose is a shorter period of time. Just the opposite. It takes a longer period of time. And now that the insulin's coming in, it doesn't have to spike all at once to take care of everything. It can do it in a slower, regulated rate, so it's not a quick spike and down. It can kind of come in and then go away. That's what it sounds like, at least. So that's the insulin response to the blood sugar. And then there's a lot more science behind it, but that's the very basic thing that I've been able to find out. Um, what else does it do? They say their cholesterol in the blood, it does lower blood cholesterol, and it manages type 2 diabetes. Um, those other blood sugars, there's the LDLs and the HDLs. I believe the HDLs are your good, the LDLs are your bad, and it kind of puts them into the better balance where your bad ones kind of go down a little bit and your good ones can kind of go up a little bit. So those are numbers that on my own blood work need help. So I'm doing this to also help that as well. Along with those insulin sensitivity, whatever, some studies have been done. I want to share one just now because why not? They actually watched about 5 people in a test one time eating about 50 grams of white bread, which may or may not be one slice. And some of them were taking the apple cider vinegar, some were not. And they said as far as the blood sugar spikes that happen from person to person, about a third, 30% had a reduced blood sugar than not having the apple cider vinegar. That's that insulin sensitivity. That's when does it actually come out of the pancreas and hit these things and hit the glucose and run throughout your system. So, and we're not talking too much. Like when I go through this, they only say about 2 tablespoons a day. I actually do mine in the morning. I have the little Dixie cup or whatever right next to my sink in the morning. I actually fill it a little bit with water and the rest with the apple cider vinegar. And I do the water with it just to cut the taste on it. And I actually use it to wash down my supplements for the day. Supplements actually are another episode I want to do in the future. So you can drink it straight. You can also put it on your foods. If you normally put a vinegar on a certain food, you can use apple cider vinegar just to make your life a little bit better. So you get hoagies, sandwiches, salads, you put oil and vinegar on there, use the apple cider vinegar with the mother. You like pickling vegetables? Use this instead. It's little things that can get it into your system. Again, they only say about 2 tablespoons a day. They do recommend you spread it out more for the maximum benefit of your life. Now, what are the cons? Usually everything that has a pro has a con. A lot of people don't talk too much about cons, and it doesn't seem to be too many. A lot of things do come into play where they say the con is if you take too much of this. And too much of anything isn't good for you. But that's the thing. And if you have a large amount of the vinegar, you can have what usually happens with people who have a lot of vinegar in their system. You know, things like gastroparesis might be an outcome of it. You know, food leaves the stomach before it goes into your digestive tract. And this stuff will slow down the absorption into the bloodstream. But if you have way too much of this stuff to do that, you'll end up with some heartburn. The fact that there's cultures in here, you might have extreme bloating in your system. You have too much vinegar, you might be nauseous. So it does have bad things, but you have to have these things in the moderation that they recommend. I remember there was a guy from long ago I used to know, and he had heard that like having pickles was actually pretty good for your system. And he goes, oh wait, if pickles are good, a lot of pickles must be better. And he got himself a big old jar of pickles. And this dude ate every single one of them in the course of a day. Now, I'm not a fan of pickles. That kind of like turns up my nose a little bit. But he wasn't feeling too good too much after that. And being the kind of person he is, he said, are you okay? Yeah, you're right? All right. And you laugh at him because why would you take that one little piece of information and then just extract it to a huge, like, I'm going to only eat this, and that's going to go from his big size to a very small size. Moderation. It's always about moderation. The other con, the main con that I found, vinegar doesn't taste very good. It really is. It's just so sour. It's so potent. It's one of those things that you just. Ugh. I never put vinegar and oil on my sandwiches. When I eat salads, I usually eat them dry. So I'm just not used to people doing this. Um, and that's like I said, when I get that little Dixie cup in the morning, I cut it with water just to reduce as much as possible with that bite. I take the Dixie cup and take my pills and swallow it down, and afterwards you do get that. Oh, ooh. But you get past that. So that's what I have for you today. I don't know if what I said is 100% true. It's just what I've read and what I'm absorbing in my mind. If you got anything to say about it or against it, let me know. Just comments down below. Otherwise, enjoy the rest of your day. Take care.